In a society where many of us are struggling financially, it's hard to imagine an economy based on trust, love, kindness, and generosity instead of money and profit. And so that's why this interview is so important to me, because it's an example of what is possible when we just take action instead of wallowing in despair, instead of focusing on the problems, instead of trying to change things on a national stage. Let's look to our local communities and look at things that we can actually reach out and touch and actually try to create some change in a tangible way that way. That's what the Growing Network does. Joe Morphy is the founder of the Growing Network, and it's a project based on sharing. It's a project based on gifting. It's about giving without expecting anything in return. And I think this project is so important because it shows us that if we want to create the future we want to see, one based on love, one based on trust, one based on collective well being rather than individualism, it starts with how we treat one another. And for me, this is a starting point because it's in these kinds of spaces where we build trust, where we explore collaboration before we enter into deeper projects like cooperative business models in our local communities. So that's why I'm so excited to share this interview with you. Today, I interview Joe Morphy, the founder of the Growing Network, and I hope it inspires you as much as it did for me. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and tell us about the amazing work that you're doing. What is the Growing Network?
Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for doing this, spending the time and the energy. The Growing Network is a community initiative whereby we invite the community to gather together to share um, homegrown food, seeds, plants, pots, friendships, skills, hot homemade soup made by a wonderful member of our community, and the like. Just to create for an hour and a half once a month, we all come together and we share amongst each other to support each other and help each other, and just to create a culture of freely giving, really, because our ethos is to give freely and share freely.
It's amazing. I really love that ethos of sharing freely because, from what I understand, there's no swapping or bartering. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, simply that if we don't swap, barter, or exchange or do time banking, then we have no element of debt, no obligation of debt. And as some of us have realized, that capitalism does actually depend on debt. And the growing network, in a way, is firstly, it's so simple. It's not a lot of work, and it works because people bring things and they take them away. So at the end of the day, you don't have a lot of clearing up to do. Just wiping down of tables and putting them away, making sure you don't leave any earth in the village hall on the floor, otherwise you get told off. Because oh, there's earth on the floor, it must have been the growing network, you know. Um, we provide tea and coffee, and we have a donation pot, and we cover costs every month, which is £26 for an hour and a half in the village hall. That includes the kitchen. And if by chance we don't quite cover that, which 99% of the time we do, then I'm very happy to cover the costs, any excess costs. It's a small price to pay for starting to create a better world, sort of heading towards a new world with all the other beautiful projects that are out there. So we can all link hands and create this better world. And all we really, my focus for 2025 is to start linking up more with other projects, especially in my locality, because, when COVID hit, um, a lot of people started growing food together in community gardens, which was fantastic. And I just thought, but I have my own garden. How can I be part of that community if I've got so much to do in my own garden and grow my own food and things like that? How can I be a community? And I thought, well, actually, this is my community. All these houses have gardens because I live in a rural, semi-rural village of about 500 houses, and they all have gardens, most of them. And I just thought, well, if we all come together and share freely amongst ourselves, then we're creating a world where money comes last and people come first, and we can support and help each other and get to know each other, and create more sort of stronger community bonds, and also create a culture of giving, generosity and kindness amongst ourselves, really. And as you know, when you start doing things like this, it's like throwing a pebble in a pond and watching it ripple out, just letting it go, letting it ripple, and letting it grow organically, as I like to say.
I love that because, like you, I see a lot of people. Well, it, it doesn't take long to find people who are frustrated with the way society has been going over the last decade or two. And I think us as a nation, we focus so much on the national issues that it can feel quite overwhelming and demotivating. But I think when we look to community, it actually feels a lot more achievable to make a change, not just for ourselves, but for others. And I love that you are focused on freely giving. It's not a debt based relationship, or you don't feel like you owe anything. It's just pure giving for the sake of giving. And you also say that you don't have to bring anything as well, which I think is quite great. Um,
That's right, yes. But I mean, we always have something to bring. We have friendship, we have skills, we have a smile, you know, and let's just get together and create a stronger community, whereby if we need to one day, we've created a safety net where people can come to and help each other, basically, because we don't know what's happening. We're hearing there's going to be a lot more extremes of weather coming, and when you put people in a safe space, so if we come together we feel safer, and then we can just give more because we feel safe. When people are paralyzed with fear, there's not a lot of giving going on because we're protecting ourselves. But if we can feel safe amongst each other, then we can create this culture of kindness and generosity, and give people permission to give, because we want to give. Human beings want to give. And I do find, even in my donation pot every month, that people are very generous, which is lovely. And of course, like I said a little bit before we had our discussion, is what I do with all the chaos and the confusion is I sit in my boat. I keep my hand on the tiller with all the rest of people who want to be in the boat. We keep our hand on the tiller and we go straight towards the new world. We bypass the chaos, the rabbit holes, the negativity. And what I've done, what I with all my travels and my lifelong search for answers, if you like, working in India, seeing the fallout of capitalism and the depravity of extreme poverty, working in a shanty town and with street children. Is what I decided was, what I could do as one woman would be to take all my energy away from focusing on the negative, cut that off completely, feed it with no more emotional energy or anything, take my energy away from the negative, plant it into the positive, and make it grow. So the positivity will grow, the positive world will grow, and the negative world will shrink. And that's the only thing I can do. That was the answer I found that I could do as one woman. And that, when, like I said previously, that we're in a small village, only 500 people. Not many people from my village actually come to the Grey Network. They might go to the Horticultural Society and the Historic Society and the choir, but we're a little bit out on a limb because we are like such a different concept in a way, even though we are so simple. You just bring stuff, you just take stuff away, you just share, you have a cup of coffee, you get to know people. And what was I going to say? Sorry, my mind's gone blank.
That's all right.
Over to you.
I was just going to say, what I love is that you're creating a space for community bonding, and so much of I don't. Well, you're in Beckley Hill, is that right?
I'm in Beckley, near Rye, small village.
Wonderful. Well, I'm in London, and I feel like those community spaces have been kind of absent recently, and there's a lot more big corporations. We live I live right next to a shopping centre. There's not really spaces that are designed to create community. Obviously, you have pubs and things like that, but they feel more transactional these days, you know? So I love that you're creating that space for your community, and you're creating a process that nurtures a collective mindset. It's not just about conversation. You're actually nurturing that that natural collective mindset. So what I would say is,
We call it ethos, our freely giving ethos.
you're freely giving ethos.
Mm.
So let me ask you a question. I noticed that you have something called the seed library. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Because I thought that's a really interesting concept.
Oh, before I do, I'll just pick up a little bit on what I just forgot about. It's when I said that we don't, not many people from my village come, but we get a lot of people from surrounding villages. They come out of the woods, kind of thing, come out of the woodwork, and so we do get a nice footfall, especially in the summer when things are growing and we are reaping and harvesting. But we always have our core of people anyway who like to come and socialize even in the winter and at Christmas and stuff like that. So, and obviously, when you bring the people together in a safe, food is non-threatening, so you bring them together in a safe way, and you then have their ear. So we can do things like the seed library to educate people and myself. I'm learning the same as them. And so what I did is I bought a load with some of the excess donations. I bought a load of seeds from the Real Seed Company, which is heritage and open pollinated seeds. And I separated some of the packs, so you get maybe 20 broad beans or 20 other radish seeds or whatever. And I split them up a bit because obviously it's quite expensive. And I put them into a box. I called it the seed library. And what I've said is, only take one type of each vegetable to avoid cross-pollination. You don't want to grow two runner beans side by side because they will cross-pollinate. And then the following year, unless it's a deliberate cross-pollination of these heritage seeds for your own custom designed veg, but if you've cross-pollinated, especially with something that's been hybridized, been crossed already, you don't know what you're going to be growing the next year. And of course, traditionally, farmers from generations and generations kept their seed and they grew it every year. But we've seen companies like Monsanto destroy this in places like India and other places whereby they kick all the other seed companies out of the village and they become the monopoly. But of course, their terminator seeds, as they're called, won't grow the following year. So the farmers have to come back. So what happens is, say they're growing cotton, the cotton will grow with some of the genetically modified anti-pest genes in it. However, that doesn't stop all pests, and the farmer has to go and buy a lot of pesticides, which cost a lot of money, to deal with the other pests. This is as I understand it. And what happens is, if the crop fails, which could be due to weather extremes or not having enough money for the other pesticides, different circumstances, then the following year the farmer has to go and put up his land as collateral to get more seeds. And if that crop fails, they're out on the street. And so probably a lot of people hearing this will have heard that there's been hundreds of thousands of farmers committed suicide over this. And we have to understand that without seed, without proper real seed, we won't have life. And this suddenly struck me. Just a few months ago, I went to a natural farming workshop, a talk on the Growing Network, and I listened a bit to their talk because I didn't stay for the whole workshop. And it was a couple of people who came over from Italy, and they recently invited me back, and I just came back from Italy myself to give a talk. And they were talking about the importance of seeds. And it just hit me, oh my gosh, without proper real seeds, we will have no life on Earth. And nature gives us seeds freely. Nature gives us sun freely. Nature gives us water freely. Nature gives us freely. Nature is abundant and gives freely. But we're all going to the supermarket and buying packaged food in single-use plastic for a fortune that's lost most of its nutrients. But all we just need to tap into what's outside our back doorstep And if you don't have a garden and you still want to participate in growing food, you can always take some free seeds from our library, germinate them in pots on your kitchen windowsill, bring them back. We will grow the food on and hopefully share the excess, or share amongst ourselves. And we call that germinators. So you can be a germinator. You can germinate your seeds and then bring them back. And that we last year, was the year before, we put out a flyer saying germinators wanted. So everybody can contribute, and children can do that too. And recently, I've just been talking to the village next to ours with the headmistress, and I'm probably going to take the sort of culture of kindness kind of side of things into the school. We've just taken a touch of gentleness into the school, who we work with their volunteers who go out free hand massages. So we usually have about three a touch of gentleness volunteers in our meetups once a month on the first Saturday of the month for an hour and a half, and they're giving out free hand massages to our community.
I saw that. That's
And
really
they are a
interesting.
non-profit community. Sorry.
I saw that. It looked really interesting.
Hmm. They're a non-profit community interest company founded by Helen Prosper. And actually, she was the one who coined the phrase creating a culture of generosity, which I latched onto straight away, because I just think creating a culture of kindness and generosity is we need to. This is the ripple. These are the ripples that need to grow out. People need to understand that they can be kind and generous. They are allowed to be their own true self, which is to give freely. I mean, I've always given freely, and I realize that's who I am and what I am. I'm a vessel of freely giving as much as I can, obviously.
I love that culture of kindness and culture of generosity. That's
Mm.
definitely what we need, and you're definitely cultivating that 100%. And a touch of gentleness, free hand massages. I mean, who could refuse that? I really love that you're collaborating with other people who are giving freely, and I think you're really breaking some boundaries. How do you find people react when you tell them about what you're doing? Do you feel that there's any pushback? Do you feel that people believe it's possible?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, you either see the concept or you don't. And like I said, we are a bit of a pilot project. So this model can be taken into the heart of any community. And let's say if you take it into a town, you can have three, four, or five, or even 10. If it's a city, I mean, you can have, you just want it for your locality, whereby if the infrastructure fails us, we can walk to it, basically. Um, it's like our community shed behind the village hall. We put a load of apples outside the shed in the summer, and they all went, and people made apple crumbles and apple juice and apple this and apple that. It was just lovely feeling, when you have excess to give to those who can't maybe put fresh food on their table every day, you know. And we need to, growing food at home has been challenging for the last couple of years because of the weather. And now there's a lot of hoo-ha with the farmers. Farming is going to have to change. And I've sort of read things that sort of say that it's small farmers that are going to be the way ahead, small organic farms, that sort of thing, whereby they're working with nature and not just monocropping. Who knows? And obviously the inheritance tax has come in now for farmers, and that's all very, very interesting, on a multi-level way. Um, but extremes, if people think we're going to be buying food from abroad, extremes of weather are not helping that in any way, and also the expense of it, the air miles of it. Why not become local? Why not start to look at local and incorporate in that, let's look at what nature gives us freely, because we can share that amongst each other. And then, in the same process, give back to nature, because I've realized that my growing beds are getting very denatured. So I'm now putting more manure onto them. I'm learning myself what I can do to improve my own home growing as well. But we're not just about home growing, we're about community. But the food aspect of it is the core root, if you like, that brings it all together.
And I love that name, the Growing Network. I love names that have like a double meaning. So that's a really cool name. When I saw that, I was like, wow, are you a marketer as well? Because that's just absolute genius. Do you have any experience with
No,
that?
not no, I mean, I love doing graphics. I love doing slides and posters and leaflets and playing around with the graphics and things like that. But no, I mean, I always thought right from the beginning that I'm not going to promote this. I'm not going to push it out. I'm going to let it ripple out and grow organically if that's what it needs to do. Maybe it's rubbish and it won't go anywhere. But so far we're six now established and set up, and we've got Stephen Tracy and Bexhill who are just doing a fantastic job. We've got Mary and her crowd in Orpington. We've got Anna in East Grinstead that's just set up. We've got us in Beckley, obviously. We've got Lucy in Ireland. I think that's all. There might be another one, but we're six anyway at the moment. And we've got two, one in North Wales and one in Polegate. People have expressed interest. It usually takes a while for people for the seed to grow. They see the vision and say, right, no pressure, it's up to you, we'll support you, we can give you templates for the flyers, we can tell you what we did that worked for us. But I always say that every growing network has a different flavor because of the demographics. It's like Anna in East Grinstead, she's going to be projecting hers more towards children and families because she has two small children herself. Which I think is brilliant because children are our future, and it's the children, it's the young people that we really want to get off their screens and back into real life kind of thing. You actually really can plant a seed and really go and plant. You don't have to just do it on Minecraft or in a virtual world. I mean, let's see what the real world can offer you as well. And we recently took a touch of gentleness into the schools. Into our local one of our primary schools, and to year 3, and the little faces, they were so eager and keen to learn to relax and to do touch in a very safe and gentle way, because there's such a stigma around it. And as Helen says, we're reconnecting a disconnected world through touch, gentleness, but communication. So we actually together, the Growing Network and the A Touch of Gentleness, I've called us freely giving events, and anybody who does anything like this can be a freely giving event too. We're making t-shirts and just for fun, just because I love to do the graphics. And there's a wonderful platform called Teemill, Teemill, where you can make up all your designs and just have 1 cent or 2 cent or whatever. So
I love
so we do
that.
that.
And that's a really creative way of funding your project as well. How are you? I mean, from what I understand, you're taking on all of the expenses with yourself. You're not. How are you? Is that a challenge for you funding, or are you finding that
Well,
okay?
not at all, actually, because we are self-funding, which means we're freely autonomous. We only have to find £26 a month because everything else is given. And so we have our donation pot, and 99% of the time I get more than enough to cover the costs. And then obviously the excess money, I don't like to hang on to much money. So what I will do is I'll buy new tea and coffee if we run out, and milk. I'll buy seeds, I'll pay for flyers, I might print some of them out myself. So, the money goes out just to the bare essentials, basically. Yeah, so like I said, we're freely autonomous. We don't have to write any grant funding applications. We don't, I'm not the sort of person that can do the bureaucracy, and I don't want to. We are just purely a network of local people coming together to share freely amongst ourselves, to help and support each other, and to create, like you say, the community bonds. That's all we are. And if they shut us down tomorrow, I'm going to knock on my neighbour's door and give them a free bunch of carrots. So there.
Amazing. And I love that essence of decentralization, because
Yeah.
it's not relying on you to be in multiple locations,
No.
setting up and
Yeah.
organizing. Everybody can do this for themselves. And I think your group now, your Telegram group, has over 100 members, which is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Growing.
Really nice. Really nice. Yeah, and obviously, getting ideas from other people as well. Like I said, every growing network has, sorry, my phone's slipping. Every growing network has a different flavor. Stephen Tracy's in Bexhill is different, a little bit different, because they're in a much bigger place. And everyone's just doing what they feel to do, what they resonate with. There's no pressure. Look, if you can't do it this month, don't worry, pick it up next month or whatever, but actually, only Lucy in Ireland has stopped. I think she stopped in November, December, and we never meet in January anyway. And then she's going to pick it back up in February, as we all do, and
Okay.
yes, and it just, I mean, we're in our coming up to our third year now, so it's been, pottering along, sharing and caring. Sharing is caring, and it's like I told the kids at school when we did a touch of gentleness. They were then had to draw around their hand and colour it in whichever way. It's just a part of the sort of creativity of it afterwards. And they were sort of grabbing all the coloured pencils and keeping them, and we said, no, sharing is kind. Put them on the table, let everybody have one, to share. And if we can get them at that age, if we can start to introduce back giving and generosity and caring and kindness and sharing, then as these young people grow older, our new world will be that. Hopefully, that's
I love that.
planting the seed. It's planting the seeds. And I always say to everybody, we're just planting seeds. We're planting the growing network seed. It's a heart seed, a phrase coined by somebody called Jacqueline Hobbs, who is Oracle Girl. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's been quite a big inspiration for me. Sort of listening to her has given me the confidence to stand up on my own. I was a bit of an outsider in my village. I've lived here for 16 years with my son, who's 23. And I've always felt like a bit of an outsider. I grew up in Greece. I've traveled the world. I really feel as if I was part of the long entrenched community until 2.5, almost 3 years ago, I started up the Growing Network. And now I feel that I am part of a community, a local community. Might not be the whole community, but it's a community we are creating of like minds. And that's the sort of world we want moving forward. And I think it's a very, very easy and simple solution to offer. Like in Italy, when I was showing my slides and doing a talk to a group of a room full of northern Italian farmers, who do share seeds amongst themselves. They have their seed sharing festival every year, and they invited me over because their community is fragmented. A lot of people have left the area. There's abandoned houses all over the place. They want people to come back and regenerate the area. And although I don't speak Italian and I had a translator, and I couldn't really understand their full ethos. How much do they share? How much don't they share? How much is money? How much is donation or swapping? I didn't find that out till the next day when we had the big seed swapping festival, that they all bring in their different seeds, and then you either swap with your own seed or you give a donation, which I thought was fantastic. But I was talking to a room full of northern Italian farmers I couldn't really communicate with outside of my translator. And I think they came up to me after and said they really liked it, and really what I just wanted to put across was we are allowed to be kind, we are allowed to share. That's what humans do, that's what nature does.
It's amazing, and what I love is that you're being invited to speak at these places, and that people are joining your groups, people are starting their own. It proves that it is possible. Perhaps even myself, I might have been a little bit skeptical at first if people could go to that stage so quickly, but you've started with that. You haven't tried to dress it up as anything else. You've just believed in the good nature of people to be able to assimilate into something like this. So well done to
That's
you.
right. I mean, all you have to do is hire your village hall for an hour and a half once a month. Make sure you can plug a kettle in, a few tables and chairs, and at a bare minimum cost, get a little donation pot, and you're off, you're away. And like I said, it's not a lot of clearing up because people bring stuff and they take stuff away, and that's as simple as that. It's really so simple and very little work.
So do you have
And sorry.
sorry, do you have any challenges then? And you mentioned that funding isn't a big challenge.
Well, footfall can be a bit of a challenge until you've got to hit it on the head a little bit. For another thing we don't do is we don't talk about anything controversial in our meetups, because that will exclude people. people won't come because they'll find that too challenging. So we keep it all very friendly. We have no politics. We have no. I'm apolitical anyway, and so is a growing network. We're apolitical. We won't touch anything like that, and we're very, not really treading on eggshells, but we're very mindful that don't bring anything controversial into the meetings. It's not about us. It's about the community. And really what we are doing is we're creating a world that's opposite. We're creating an inclusive world that's opposite to the current exclusive world where you might be excluded because you can't afford to put fresh food on your table. You might be excluded. You can't afford a car. You can't, all the things you can be excluded from. Whereas the Growing Network is an inclusive world where we include everybody. You don't have to bring anything. Just come, just bring yourself, bring your friendship, bring whatever, your goodwill. And everyone is welcome. And if there's something on the sharing table, take it. That's what I said, take it. We don't want anything left over afterwards. Just take everything. Sometimes we get huge pumpkins brought in. We carve them all up and people take away sort of ingredients for soup and things like that. And it's also a space where people can be creative as well. You can create your own flyers, you can create your own space, whatever. As long as you're being inclusive and you're freely sharing, those are really our two values.
I really love your policy on not bringing politics into the meetings. I think that is so powerful. And I've said that before on my live streams. Here we talk about solutions, we don't talk about problems. And it's not necessarily that I agree or disagree with anything you're saying. It's just that I'm trying to create an inclusive environment. I'm trying to create one that is focused on positivity and what we can do for each other. So hearing you say that has just made me feel even more kind of validated in that, and I will keep to that, because sometimes it is tempting. People bring certain things up and I don't want to shut down anybody's freedom of speech, and sometimes it might feel like that, but I totally get where you're coming from. It's just it's not helpful at all. And sometimes people come because they want to get something off their chest, not necessarily because they want to contribute to what you're doing. So it keeps that.
I mean, of course, with the hand massage, when you do I've done the training, you get a free 1-day training if you want to. I'm a volunteer, but I do facilitation. I don't do the hand massages. That's not really my thing. So if I go and volunteer at a Touch of Gentleness event, I'll stand at the door and I'll usher people in and I'll give them a cup of water and I'll say, look, you've got a 5-minute wait or a 10-minute wait because all our volunteers are busy. But in that training, you don't just learn to give a very beautiful hand massage. You also learn to listen deeply. So people will come and it's amazing how people open up. And when I am facilitating, when I am in my facilitator role, which I do voluntarily, I watch people come in from the street we're in the Beacon Centre in Eastbourne once a month in a shop that we get for free one day a month called the Gather Space. And people come in, with their shopping and they're all worn out and they need a glass of water and they have a seat on one of the sofas while they wait. And then they'll get up and they'll have their hand massage and they will leave shining from within. It's just an incredible transformation in 20 minutes. And they'll leave a beautiful comment if they want and join the newsletter if they want. And it's about them. It's not about us. And that's where the freely sharing ethos comes in as well. It's not about what I think or who I am or what my ego wants. It's about sharing our goodwill and our generosity freely and letting that ripple out,
100%. And on that note, before you go, I really would like to get your views on money and separation, because we were talking a little bit about that before.
Charles Eisenstein. Yeah. So Charles Eisenstein, in his book Sacred Economics, has said money is the key to separation, and it's a man-made. Separation is a man-made phenomena. As is scarcity. So the two together are man-made. Nature gives abundantly and freely. So there is no such thing as scarcity because we are nature. And what he says is that you take a pioneer species in the gift economy, or as Mark Boyle in Moneyless Man coined it, the nature economy. So a tree doesn't give oxygen because a tree needs oxygen. A tree gives oxygen because it has loads of oxygen, but it gives it to the next species who needs oxygen. And that species might be a nitrogen fixer. So the nitrogen fixer fixes the soil. So plants can grow. Plants grow roots. The roots grow fungi. The fungi add nutrients to the soil, and therefore the whole circle, the nature's gift economy, it's a web of gifts, is the term he has phrased. And he says the more you give, the richer you become. And he's got a very nice video on that as well, which you can find on YouTube. It's just a short video, but it's just so lovely. And he calls himself a sort of a man of degrowth. You know, his philosophy is degrowth instead of growth. Like the Grain Network, we are inclusive instead of exclusive. He is degrowth instead of growth, kind of thing. And if you take your energy away from all the troubles of the world, did I say this already? You know, if you take your negative energy and you plant it into a positive mindset, and you focus your energy positively, and you give no more heed to the negative, the chaos, the rabbit holes, whatever, then you can get that world to grow and ripple out. And you know, if you're in the right place at the right time with the right intention, that's all you can do as one person. Is, you know, and if people choose to come, they will come, and if they don't, you're still in the right place. You're doing what you believe in and who you are, and eventually you will attract to you people of like mind. And so quite often we get people coming in from further afield just to see how it works and how we run it, kind of thing, which is very simple, as I've said. And then they'll go off and create their own, or add elements of it to what they're already doing.
100%. I do believe in stepping into the new rather than kicking against the old. And
Absolutely.
there's so many people out there trying to convince people that their views, and I don't think that's the way. I think it's better to just create what you want to create with the people who are already like-minded, and those that resonate with it will join, because you need
Yeah.
to have a vision of what you want to create, what you're trying to promote. People don't necessarily want to disrupt. People don't necessarily want to disrupt systems or society unless they can see a better version. And I think we have to create the society we want, and that is the best advert. That's the best way to convince anybody that what you're trying to create is a better model.
Definitely. Yeah, and with the social, because I live in quite a sort of hard nut to crack community, as I've said before. You know, we get a lot of people from around and about, but from it's a bit like my closest town, Rise, got a little bit of a hard nut to crack atmosphere about it. But every time I put out a post on our village society Facebook page and other things, I try to normalize words, you know, words such as kindness and generosity and love and connection and freely sharing obviously is a big one, because that's our main ethos. And I try and normalize these words in, even if people aren't coming, it's about normalizing the whole approach, if you like, and the whole giving people permission to be nice and kind of thing, you know. And if it,
100%.
like I spoke to I went and I was invited to speak to a horticultural society near Ditchling, of, I think the youngest person was probably 55 or something. And I just read my audience, and I just shared how I set it up and what we do and this and that. And it was a really nice feeling. And I said, you know, we bring a lot of love into the room. The energy of freely sharing is so high that we're bringing a lot of love into the room, and that might be quite alien for some people to hear that, but that's just, you know, trying to normalize who we are and what we are and what we can do, you know.
100%. I think what you're doing is you're making community cool again, because a lot of times we know that community things are happening within the community, but I don't know if people really gravitate towards that. And what I want to do is I want to show people like you, we're just normal people. What we're doing is actually our natural state as human beings, and it's okay to do that. You're creating those spaces, you know, and you don't have to feel like you have to contribute anything. Just being there is enough of a contribution.
Participating is contributing.
100%.
Definitely.
Before you go, I just wanted to touch on one thing you said, the degrowth. ideology. I really love that concept. And a great example of it, I think, that was mentioned by Charles Eisenstein, who you mentioned. He mentions like a community shed where instead of everybody in the neighborhood buying power tools, the community buys the power tools and then they just borrow it when they need it and put it back.
Buy 2 or 3 power tools, and not everyone have one of their own. And like car share, I mean, there are some places that do car share already. But yeah, if you everything can be locally sourced, basically. It's like we're paying out a lot of money to the government in council tax and things like that, and I won't go into the politics of it, but we can give some of that money to ourselves, actually. And the trouble is they're not managing that money responsibly because of the MOD and stuff I won't go into. But I feel quite passionately about that. I don't want my money that I want to pay for services being used to go into other countries and cause havoc. I feel very, very passionately about that as well. So we want, we hopefully, with our freely sharing ethos, we will be creating peace as well in the world, because there's no need to fight, is there? Let's face it.
100%. I definitely see
Yeah.
a cooperative model in bringing, it's taking away from that old system and it's putting it into something positive. It's putting it into ourselves, our local communities. It's the most peaceful form of revolution you could find.
Sure, absolutely. We're simply creating our own world the way we want it to be,
100%.
and taking our energy away from the old one, because that's all crumbling and breaking down anyway, as far as I'm concerned. We just need to shrink it. So don't keep feeding it. Take yourself out of it and put it into something new and positive.
100%. That's why I've called the channel Co-op Evolution, because it's not a revolution, it's an evolution.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
So thank you so much, Jo. I really appreciate you coming on today. I want to be mindful of your time, and I just want to thank you so much because you're an inspiration, what you've created, and I really wish you all the best with your group. I'm part of the group now, so I'll be keeping an eye on what you're doing and supporting in any way I can. How can people find out more about you and get in touch?
Okay. So we are on Facebook. It's the Growing Network UK is the page I run. There's a couple of others. There's Ditchling and Ireland as well. But the main one is the Growing Network UK, and our email address is thegrowingnetwork63@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jo. I'll put your information in the description in the video. I look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully you could come back on my TikTok channel as a panelist one day. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Wish you all the best. I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You're the perfect host. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Take care of yourself. Speak
soon. Take
soon.
care.